In the name of Allah, the most gracious, the most merciful. I am Kiran Islam from BS Chemistry. My presentation topic is plant nutrients and mixed fertilizers. First, let me tell you the presentation layout. In plant nutrients, I will explain what is primary nutrients, secondary nutrients, and micronutrients. In mixed fertilizer, I will tell you its introduction and then advantages and disadvantages of mixed fertilizers. So first, moving toward the plant nutrients. Water pollution can be caused by the use of synthetic fertilizers. If inorganic fertilizer from agricultural land and enters into rivers and lakes, they can cause eutrophication. What is eutrophication? Eutrophication is the excessive growth of the plants and the and algae on the surface of the water. Also, very soluble ions from like ammonium nitrate that are very toxic can percolate through the soil and it can contaminate the groundwater. Plants obtain carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen from the land and water with the energy from sun and convert the hydrogen, carbon, and oxygen into simpler carbohydrates. Then these carbohydrates are converted into the complex carbohydrates that make the basic material for plants. So this is the equation for the process of photosynthesis. It is the carbon dioxide react with the water and converted into the carbohydrates. And these carbohydrates are converted into the complex carbohydrates. In addition to the carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen, plant requires at least 30 more elements that are called mineral nutrients. These are named as mineral nutrients because they are obtained from the soil. Now, the groups of the mineral nutrients. Basically, there are three types of mineral nutrients. The first is primary nutrients, secondary nutrients, and micronutrients. These all are named according to the amount of each that plant need to thrive. As the name indicates, primary. It means that plants require these nutrients in a large amount. And micro means small. It means that plant require these nutrients in a small amount. So here are some nutrients which are required by the plants and their chemical form. These all are non-minerals, carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. The primary nutrients are nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. Secondary nutrients are calcium, magnesium, and sulfur. And the micronutrients are boron, chlorine, copper, iron, manganese, and zinc. So first, I will talk about primary nutrients. The first primary nutrient is nitrogen. Plants need nitrogen to manufacture ammonia acid and proteins that are essential for formation of leaf and stems. How plants obtain nitrogen? Plants obtain nitrogen from soil and from the atmosphere. Plants obtain nitrogen from soil in amount of 0.5 kg. As we all know, 78% nitrogen is present in atmosphere, but plants don't take it directly. For most plants, nitrogen fixation is necessary. Nitrogen fixation is a process in which the atmospheric nitrogen is converted into water-soluble form that plants can absorb easily. And it is done by the soil bacteria, blue-green algae, lightning, and bacteria in nodules. Nitrogen fixing bacteria. Nitrogen fixing bacteria convert the atmospheric nitrogen into the ammonia, and then in the slightly acidic soil it is converted into the ammonium nitrates, and then ammonium nitrates are converted into the nitrate ions, which are easily taken up by the roots of the plant. Lightning. During the thunderstorm, the electrical discharge causes the atmospheric nitrogen to react with the oxygen and is converted into the nitrogen dioxide. Then this nitrogen dioxide reacts with the water and converts into the nitric acid. Then the nitric acid in rainfall replenishes the supply of nitrate ions into the soil. Nitrogen fixing leguminous crops such as beans, peas, alfalfa and soybeans. So this is a diagram from which we can see how plants obtain nitrogen from atmosphere, from the soil. The second primary nutrient is phosphorus. Plants need phosphorus for the synthesis of DNA and RNA, which stand for diribonucleic acid and ribonucleic acid, and for the synthesis of ATP and ADP. ATP means adenosine triphosphate and ADP means adenosine diphosphate compounds that are involved in energy transfer in many metabolic processes, including photosynthesis. How plants obtain phosphorus? The phosphorus is present in the form of phosphate ions. So in natural soil near at neutral pH, phosphate present as ions. which are derived from the weathering of rocks and from the ancient deposit of the skeleton remains of sea creatures. Phosphate is common in all soil, but it's present in the low concentration, so you have to add it through the fertilizers. In water, phosphate solubility is largely controlled by its pH. There are three forms of the phosphate ion, and they have different pKa value, means their pH is different. The third and the last primary nutrient is potassium. Potassium is the third primary nutrient which is taken up by the plant root as an ion. Potassium takes part in the formation of cellulose and starch from simpler sugar, and it is essential for the normal functioning of many plant enzymes. How plants obtain potassium? Potassium is distributed widely in the earth crust and is abundant in the most soil. But if the plants are grown repeatedly on the same land without renewing potassium, the soil supply of this nutrient will eventually be depleted. Commercially, fertilizer contain potassium in the form of potash and potassium chloride. Next are the secondary nutrients. First secondary nutrient is calcium. Calcium is abundant in nearly all soils. Not only it is a component of many minerals, but it is also frequently distributed on soil in the form of lime to neutralize acidity. The secondary nutrient is magnesium. Magnesium, which is taken up by the root as ion, is a constituent of chlorophyll. A magnesium deficiency causes chlorosis. Chlorosis is the yellowing of leaves. Similar to calcium, it is abundant in most soils. And the last secondary nutrient is sulfur. Plants absorb sulfur as ion. Sulfur is a constituent of amino acid, so it is essential for the synthesis of proteins. Sulfur deficiency occurs mostly in the sandy, well-drained soils. This deficiency is reduced by adding ammonium sulfate, potassium sulfate, and the other sulfates. Next are the micronutrients. They are required in a trace amount, but they are as essential as the primary nutrients for the healthy growth of the plants. The effect of the deficiency of the micronutrients can lead to the severe effect. For example, if onions grow in soil lack of zinc, it can stunt it and develop abnormally. Uses of micronutrients. It is often difficult to determine which, if any micronutrient is in short supply in a particular soil, and how much of a micronutrient should be applied to remedy a deficiency. Another problem is that the applied nutrient may bond to chemicals which are already present in the soil and become unavailable to the plant. For example, agriculturists have found that it is applicable to add iron in the form of its complex rather than as a simple inorganic salt, because in the complex form the iron is protected from the chemicals in the soil and are easily available to the plant. Because plants vary considerably in their requirement for micronutrients, supplementary nutrients must be supplied with great care. For example, the amount of the boron that is ideal for sugar beets are toxic for the soya bean. Second topic is mixed fertilizer. So, what are fertilizers? Fertilizer is any material of natural or synthetic origin that is applied to soil or to plant tissues to supply one or more plant nutrients, which are essential to the growth of plants. Many sources of fertilizer exist, both natural and industrially produced. What are mixed fertilizers? Farmers and home gardeners usually correct soil deficiency by applying fertilizers that contain mixture of three primary nutrients. These nutrients are nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. Bags of mixed fertilizer are labeled with a set of three numbers that indicate in the following order the percentage of nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. For example, if the numbers are 5, 10, 5, it means that the fertilizer composes 5% nitrogen, 10% phosphorus, and 5% potassium. As we can see from this figure, here is written 27, 3, and 3. It means that this fertilizer contains 27% nitrogen, 3% phosphorus, and 3% potassium. Use of mixed fertilizer. The choice of fertilizer depends upon the crop being grown. For example, for lawns, the most important nutrient is nitrogen. So we will use that fertilizer which has a high concentration of nitrogen. So 20-10-10 mix is a better choice. It means that it is a high concentration of nitrogen which we can use for the lawn. Similarly, another example, fruits and vegetables require a fertilizer that is rich in phosphorus, so a 10-30-10 mix is better choice. Advantages of mixed fertilizer. Two or more fertilizer elements are added together to make a mixed fertilizer to the field. Less labor is therefore required for the application of mixed fertilizer. The fertilizer elements can be more uniformly applied to the field, especially when they are required in small quantity. And the mixed fertilizer can be easily drilled because they are in good physical conditions. When a mixed fertilizer has been prepared on a scientific method and compensate for the deficiency of nutrients in the soil of the region, the farmer is assured of the right proportion of plants' nutrients in the soil. Next are the disadvantages of the mixed fertilizer. The use of mixed fertilizer doesn't permit application of the individual fertilizer elements, which may be required by the crop at specific times. The illiterate farmer cannot effectively control the quantity of the plant food present in the mixture. He has to rely entirely on the grade advertised by the firms and the firms charge for mixing the fertilizers. So that's all from my side. Thank you.